Welcome to the Pelican Brief with your host, David Tapman.
Welcome to the Pelican Brief. I am your host, David Tapman. Thank you so much for tuning in. So in this episode of the Pelican Brief, we wanted to update you on the activities of the second extraordinary session of the Louisiana Legislature, or what was referred to as the special session. The Governor Jeff Landry called the legislature into session to fulfill his campaign promise to address crime issues in our state. Special session was kicked off on February the 19th and was actually scheduled to go until March 6th, but ended up only lasting about 2 weeks because the bills that the governor provided for and his call and worked with legislators to shepherd those bills through, they passed pretty easily, a little overwhelmingly, and the governor got exactly what he wanted. There were a lot of calls for no amendments. Those attempts were often in vain, but it passed overwhelmingly in the House and the Senate. Louisiana is definitely, crime has been at the top of the list of issues in and across our state. And so the governor made that part of his campaign promise. So let's talk about, there were 21 bills that were passed. So there were 21 acts of the legislature. We're not going to go through every one of those, but we'll talk about what we think are the big ones. So concealed carry was a big issue. So in the state of Louisiana, you can open carry. You can, except for those places that are prohibited by law or allowed for by law on private property, you can open carry. This was an effort by the governor and in particular Senator Blake Miguez out of New Iberia to provide for permitless concealed carry, which is pretty common in the southern states. So we were really one of the only deep south states that did not have permitless concealed carry. So that passed. I do want to make sure that our audience knows that that is not yet in effect. The bill does not take effect until July 4th, 2024. It's probably just an accident that they picked that date. I'm just kidding. And so just remember that just because it passed and was signed by the governor, there is an effective date. And so beginning 12:01 on July 4th, 2024, you can carry a concealed firearm, handgun, without a permit. Now, there was another bill that talks about the limitation of liability relative to concealed carry, and that bill basically went in and sort of outlined, that there is a limitation of liability if someone is authorized to have a firearm, and that if something happens where they're in defense of themselves and another, other elements, but that it would limit their liability not only of the individual perpetrator, but of their heirs and their families. And so, that was a big issue that was talked about during the session. We'll see if it changes anything. A lot of the opponents of those bills said it was going to make crime worse. We'll see. We'll see what happens as we move forward. There were other bills that sort of went maybe a little more directly at the crime issue. There were bills dealing with the reduction of good time. Often when someone is sentenced for a particular crime, depending on the nature of that crime, they can earn good time. And in some of those cases, they can earn a lot of good time. And I'm not going to get into the numbers, but you can trim your sentence by more than a third. And there were a number of bills that passed that will reduce good time, and the idea being that we should have, this is my term, I'm going to use it, truth in sentencing. If you're going to sentence someone to 10 years, you shouldn't sentence them to 10 years knowing they're going to get out in 6.5. You should say what that is. And so that's my read on it. I don't have a a dog in the hunt one way or the other. For those of you who know me, know that I do have a brother who served significant time, and he did get good time. It wasn't a violent crime, but he was able to get out early, and he's done well. So we'll see if this truth in sentencing, again, my term, provides opportunities to keep dangerous people off the street and protect law-abiding citizens. We'll see. There was another bill that changed the pardon and parole board processes relative to how they work and parole eligibility and unanimous votes of the parole board in order for someone to get out. So those were bills that were pretty significant. And then another really big bill was the lowering of the age bill. You may remember a few years back there was the raise the age bill, where basically they raised the age at which you could be prosecuted as an adult. They raised it to 18, so 17-year-olds could not be charged as adults. You probably have seen in the press that there have been a lot of instances where our corrections system, our Department of Corrections is struggling to deal with the juvenile housing issues. You've heard of escapes. You've heard of escapes by juveniles who were accused of murder or violent crimes. And so there was a big push to raise the age back to 18. They did. It passed, and that is where we are now. And then another bill about increasing the penalties for carjacking. So many of you, I'm sure, have heard the story about the lady who was carjacked in New Orleans. It was horrific. Her sister testified in committee. There were 3 juveniles that carjacked her. She was caught in her car, drugged for a very long distance. At some point, her leg was severed from her body. She was still alive. It was horrific, and it was very difficult to watch that testimony. I can only imagine what it was like for her, knowing what her sister went through. So carjacking is a big issue in our urban areas, and this bill seeks to make that a more serious crime. Again, whether it affects, it reduces crime, we'll see, but it certainly will make perhaps people think maybe a second or third time about carjacking, and then perhaps some of those people who maybe don't want to follow the law might, because the consequences are much more significant. So the other big bill that, in addition to the concealed carry, and I saved this for last because it passed pretty easily, and that is the methods of delivery of execution in the state of Louisiana. Back when, don't have the exact date, but we used to use the electric chair. If you're going to have cruel and unusual punishment, I don't know how you have. That's pretty bad. But some of the crimes that were committed were pretty bad too. And so at some point, the state of Louisiana and a lot of other states went to lethal injection. It was, the Supreme Court had ruled that certain types of execution were cruel and unusual punishment, and so lethal injection seemed to be a way to basically put people to sleep, like you would put a pet to sleep. And you might not like that reference, but I don't really care. That's really actually what it appears to be. And so lethal injection happened for a while, and then there was a lot of pressure from the anti-death penalty people to put pressure on the drug companies to prevent them or to put pressure on them from providing the drugs for lethal injection. And I believe this is in direct response to that. So what the bill did a lot of other things, but the three main points of the bill, and this bill was by Representative Nikki Muscarella, who is an attorney from Hammond. He's also the chairman of the Civil Law Committee. What that bill did is it provided for the ability to not have to disclose contractual relationships relative to execution of individuals, and so that the idea being, I think, that they wouldn't have to disclose who gave them the drugs for lethal injection. They wouldn't have to disclose perhaps which drugs they used, and that bill passed. So we'll see if that makes a difference. They did, however, pass two other methods of execution that were not previously considered in the state of Louisiana, and that is the state of Alabama has recently executed an individual with nitrogen gas. That it was added to Louisiana statute, so Louisiana now has the ability to execute someone using the method that Alabama did, which is basically nitrogen gas without the oxygen in it. And for those of you who know, when you take a deep breath, the vast majority of what you breathe in is nitrogen, not oxygen. And so it causes individuals to die. And however that is, the anti-death penalty people are going to say that it's cruel and unusual punishment because of some reports from the Alabama execution, the recent Alabama execution. Others would say that's the body's natural reaction when it's deprived of oxygen. Who knows? We'll see. But electrocution was brought back. Now, not necessarily the electric chair, but electrocution. We don't know what that'll look like. I mean, we don't know if they're going to bring back the old electric chair or not. The bill, in my opinion, seems pretty broad. I'm not a lawyer. I did play one on TV and in a movie, and I have slept at many, many, many Holiday Inn Expresses. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. The bill provides that the secretary will have will determine what the method of execution is. The secretary of the Department of Corrections. I know that our Governor Jeff Landry has said that his preferred method of execution is lethal injection, but that he believes, and I'm sort of quoting him. I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I'll just generally speak to what I believe he has expressed his position to be, which is he prefers lethal injection, but that he believes that when a judge and a jury sentences someone to be executed, that is a contract with the state and that it is the state's obligation to carry that out. So that was another big issue that was discussed in the legislative session. So that wraps up the legislative session. We're going to begin to talk about the regular session, which begins on March the 11th. It's a session of general jurisdiction. It goes till June 4th. It is the bill count, the number of bills that have been filed so far has been pretty low. I can remember, as my children would say, back in the day when we would have 2,500 to 3,000 bills filed for a regular session of general jurisdiction. We are probably a little over 1,000 right now. So the bill count is low. Each legislator can file up to 5 bills more of general jurisdiction for about 2 weeks after they start. So there may be some more bills that'll drop. I'm sure there are going to be people who are going to wait till the last minute to drop bills, but we'll see. So a couple of things that I wanted tell you about, we're going to, during the regular session, the Pelican Brief is going to be published, released on a weekly basis, perhaps more, depending on the action. It depends on two things. One is I don't want to make the show boring, and two is it takes some time for me to do these shows because there's a lot of research that goes into it. There is editing, there is producing to the platform, and so it takes a little bit of time, but we're going to try to do weekly shows. One of the exciting things that I'd like to announce is that we are now on our own domain, pelicanbriefpodcast.com. You can go to our website now. We have a website, so we're growing, where our audience is growing, and we're going to continue to try to bring quality content to our listeners and our subscribers. We want to give you the news without a particular play on it. We think that the mainstream media, I say we, my team thinks that the mainstream media is out of control. They don't report the news as much as they do give you their positions and their reasons why, and basically do not often talk about the other side, and that goes from legislative coverage to crime coverage to just news in the community. And we'll get more into that in another show that we're doing called The David Tatman Show. That show will kick off in a couple of weeks. We're excited about that show. I'll have a little bit more help on that side. And in that show, we'll talk a little bit more about regional things that are going on in Louisiana. And in that one, I'm going to give you my take. I'll be much more opinionated, and I'm going to tell people up front. That podcast is davidtatmanshow.com, davidtatmanshow.com. You can go to that website. It is up. It is running, and we are very excited about that. So want to give a little bit of a plug for our listeners who know us. We do not advertise. We do not make money off of this. This is strictly an opportunity to communicate to our clients and to the general public or anyone who's interested in listening what's going on, a sort of insider's view as to what's going on at the Capitol. But I wanted to give a plug out to my good friend, Kieran Chawla. For those of you in the Baton Rouge area, you probably know her. She was a television reporter with one of the local stations. She now has her own gig, and it's doing really well. It's if you want to go to Unfiltered with Kieran, it's Unfiltered with, and then Kieran is spelled KIRAN.com. She is her own news network. You get the real story. You usually get it quicker. She's got a lot of good sources. She is an Emmy Award-winning reporter. She has won multiple Edward R. Murrow Awards, and then I'm going to plug her podcast, Louisiana Unfiltered. She has a show, great information if you want to know about things going on in and around Baton Rouge. She has access to the people who have the answers, and so if you get a chance, go listen to her. I think you will really enjoy her show, and I do. I'm subscribed, and every time an episode comes out, I listen to it because it's good stuff. So just please share our show. If you're a listener, if you think other people might be interested in the content that we have, please share it. We're on all social media platforms at Pelican Brief 225. That's at Pelican Brief 225. You can find us on YouTube because we publish a video version, which if you do that version, you have to look at my face, which is not the most positive thing in the world. But that address on YouTube is at the Pelican Brief 225. So you can go there and see us and listen to us. And then if you want to send us an email, you can send us an email, the Pelican Brief 225 at gmail.com. Now you can also go to our website, pelicanbriefpodcast.com, and you can go in and leave us a message there. And we'll continue to evolve, and we'll continue to get better. You can leave voicemail messages on our website. We're trying to provide information and education on what's going on in Baton Rouge. So thank you for tuning in. We love our audience. We appreciate you being here. If there are topics that you would like us to cover or go into more detail, please let us know. The next time you hear from us will be basically an overview of the upcoming session and what to expect. And until then, I am David Tatman, your host, and we are the Pelican Brief.
The Pelican Brief is an off-script production.